And before any webinar, we also always acknowledge the lands that we are on. So Royal Roads lives, learns, and works on the lands of the Kosepsum and the Lekwungen ancestors and families who've been here for thousands of years. I'm working from home today, but I think it's important that we all still recognize where we're joining from today and, you know, appreciate the lands that we are on. So today we are going to be MA in Interdisciplinary Studies, and specifically hearing from some of our past students who've taken this program and hearing about their experiences throughout this whole process. So we're going to be joined a little bit further into the presentation by Arv Aujla, by Kate Ellis, and Jon Feltham. So really, really excited to be able to hear their experiences. We're also joined by some other folks today. So Dr. Jo Axe, who is the program head, she'll be sharing some information about the program on a higher level. And then we have Willem Vandoesburg, who is the Interdisciplinary Studies Program Advisor. He'll be leading our panel discussion today. And then my name is Christy Jones, and I'm an Education Advisor at the university. We're also joined by some folks behind the scenes. So Rhonda White is helping us out today in the chat box. So she's an enrollment advisor at the university, and she is here to also help answer any questions that come up. We would love for you also to introduce yourselves in the chat box. So if you feel comfortable, feel free to let us know where you're joining from, around the country or around the world, perhaps. What drew you to the webinar, what industry you're working in, anything that you feel comfortable sharing, please feel free to type away in the chat box there. So to go through our agenda, we're going to be taking you through a very brief overview of the Royal Roads University experience and program at a glance, just so you feel that you all can hear a little bit more about the program before we dig into the panel discussion today. To get started, if you are unfamiliar with our campus, here's a bit of a snapshot of it. So Hatley Castle, the top left-hand corner photo there, is kind of a focal point of our campus. The building was built in the early 1900s by the Dunsmuir family. And in normal times, it's used as a working building, although there are still folks still working there today. It's used for fun things like events and film sets. It's used for classes from time to time, and it really is a hub of activity on our campus. On the top right-hand corner there, you can see the Japanese gardens. So kind of right adjacent to where the castle is, there's a whole interconnected network of manicured gardens. So the Japanese gardens is just one example. We also have the Italian gardens. We have a croquet lawn. We have the rose gardens. So there's many places that you can come and explore. On the bottom left-hand corner is the Esquimalt Lagoon. So we're also right on the ocean, which you can kind of see just behind the photo of the castle as well. And it's a really beautiful place if you enjoy wildlife and enjoy taking some time and some peace and quiet by the water. It's a bird sanctuary, which is really lovely. And it's just another great place for you to explore. And then, of course, on the bottom right-hand corner, we have a little bit of an ode to the fact that Royal Roads has been doing online learning for over 25 years now. So this has been a really integral part to who we are since the inception of Royal Roads University. And of course, right now with the pandemic, everything has been happening online pretty seamlessly for us, as most of our programming has been online to begin with. But we hope to bring students back on campus when it is safe, whether that be for a shorter residency and things like that. So you can hopefully one day be able to explore the campus. And of course, it is your place as well to come and visit, even if you are taking courses online. When it's safe to do so, come for your convocation and everything like that. We're also on Ashoka U Changemaker campus. So this is a designation that's been given to a select number of higher education institutions, and we're really proud of it. It means that the type of education that we provide is really interdisciplinary. It's really entrepreneurial. It's really solutions oriented. So this is something that we infuse into all of our programs, and especially this one as being an interdisciplinary program. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Dr. Jo Axe to take us through a little bit more about the MAIS program itself.
Christy, and I just noticed I don't have the capacity to forward the slides, so I may have to ask you to forward them for me.
Yeah, you can just say next slide and I'll switch it.
Okay, that's fantastic, thanks. So yeah, I'm the program head for the Master of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies at Royal Roads University, and I'm a professor in the College of Interdisciplinary Studies. So I will give you a short guided tour of the program, and hopefully this will prompt some of the questions, and hopefully there will be some it might answer. But as you're going through, you might want to think about what I'm saying, and if that prompts you to think of any questions you may want to ask our panel in the chat box. So first of all, what does interdisciplinary mean to MAIS students, if you can get your tongue around it? So it's that area of research, area of studies which will allow you to look at complex questions and problems in the world around us, and to look at that through the lens of different disciplines. So you may be looking at it through the lens of leadership. You may want to look at it through the lens of communication or environment. There are many different ways that you can look at problems, and it allows you to pick from different courses in the programs that RU has to offer and put together a program that's unique to yourself. So next slide. Thank you. So talking to our students before they come into the program, some of the things that they want to do with the MAIS program is to have a program that's flexible, that meets the needs of them as individuals. It also allows them to create that individualized academic schedule, which is what we were talking to in the last slide, where you've got these different fields that you can look at. You can choose from different ones that may appeal to you, particularly because of your perspectives in the world, the types of, maybe you want to do a thesis, the types of research you want to undertake, and inform that the world that you're living in, the job that you're working in, and perhaps where you want to go in the future. It allows you to create that schedule that will make it possible for you to continue to work. You don't have to stop your workday life in order to do your studies at RU. You continue to work in concert, in parallel to your working day. And it allows you to build some diverse networks. And the reason for this particular piece is that because you're working with students in different programs, you're exposed to a number of different networks. So if you're purely taking a business program, you may be exposed to folks in the MBA program. The same thing of communications. But if you're working in the MAIS program, you're interacting with people from many different fields and interests. And then the last one is about if you are interested in doing a thesis or a research paper, you'll be thinking about something that interests you from a number of different perspectives. It could be something that's interested you for many years. It could just be something that you're currently involved in at work, but bring your own research topic into the program. So next slide, please. Who our MAIS students are. So if you look at the list here, and it goes on, these are some of the snapshots of folks who've entered our programs in the past. So government, NGOs, we have educators, social service professionals, military, private consultants, healthcare employees, but every one of those is a lifelong learner. So that's the one thing everybody has in common, is that desire to continue learning and to pursue your education. So many different backgrounds, many different people you'll be working with in the courses that you'll be taking, which also makes the learning environment incredibly rich, because you're learning from others and not just from the texts and your professors. You're immersed in teams working with folks from a number of different backgrounds. So next slide, please. And this is the last slide. So it's just a brief overview of the program. Hopefully, as I mentioned, will prompt some questions for you. So a total of 36 credits that you'll be taking in order to complete the MAIS program. There are several courses in MAIS which you're required to take as part of the program. And that's the INDIS 500, 505, and 510. So we've got research methods. We have, it teaches you how to think creatively, and interdisciplinary theory. So there's a few different areas that you'll be looking at that will set you up in really good shape for understanding the world through an interdisciplinary lens. So once you've taken those, you've got several different options. Those are all online, by the way. 7 different options we've set out for you here, and it's options 1, 2, and 3. So the first one is, if you want to do your program entirely online, you can do that. You can take courses in a variety of different programs, and building on the foundation 3 courses that you already have, just conduct your entire education, entire degree online. That's the first option. Second option Some folks like to come in and do a residency at Royal Roads. At the moment, that's not quite such an option because of COVID, but we're hopefully going to be back in business pretty soon, and residency will be an option. So there's an ability to come in. You can come into campus for up to 2 weeks, and that's usually part of a 10-week course. So there'll be a little bit of pre-residency work, there'll be your residency, and then there'll be post-res. And oftentimes when you're taking your residency, you'll be taking 1, 2, or 3 courses, usually 2 to 3 at the same time. And you'll then complete your program by adding more online courses to get your 36 credits. So that's the second option. The third option is something you can choose to do the research drive pathway. And in this one, you'll be doing online courses and you'll be doing some research. So you can choose either a thesis or you can choose to do a research paper. So if you choose the thesis, you'll be doing a fairly significant research project for 12 credits, which will usually be primary research and informed by literature. A lot of theory involved in that one. And the research paper, which is not a primary research project, it's what's called secondary research. So you'll be looking at publications that have already been produced and looking again through the lens of something that you're interested in. And the interesting piece about this one is you can bring in that topic that you're interested in and build on it. So you might come in with an interesting question. You might find as you're moving through the program, you tweak your question a little bit, or maybe move on to a different kind of question or area that you're interested in. And you'll then be able to develop and move into the research course, whichever pathway you're choosing, and really explore that question and find out what there is to know about it and how you can contribute to that discussion, and perhaps come up with some recommendations that would inform other people's actions. So then that last piece is you're just adding an elective courses to complete the program if you choose that piece. Now the thesis comes at the end of the program, so you'd be doing your foundation, you'd be doing some elective courses, and then you'd be doing the thesis or the research paper at the end. And that concludes it for me. So I think I'm going to hand it over to Willem, who's going to introduce the panel.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joe. And the panel actually showcases really well the diversity of the program, and that you can take your own pathway, your own flexible learning plan, right? Your own personal learning plan you can create. And our panel is 3 people today. That's Arv, Kate, and Jon. And each of our panel members have their unique background. It's also interesting to say they're from coast to coast. Arv is from the West Coast, Jon is from the prairies, and Kate is from the East Coast. And each of them, I'll introduce them each of them to you. But it's interesting to say that 2 of them actually have taken a residency. Well, only 20% of our students take a residency yet, so they actually come to campus. 2 of our panel members have done that. So it'll be interesting to talk a little bit more about that. And so the first I like to introduce is Arv. And Arv has taken, I think, a very personal focus in his program and focusing on the breadth of knowledge. So pick and choosing courses that he wanted to add to his knowledge. He was in particular interested in leadership and education, because he's also a leader of a group of instructors at the Naval Fleet School, right, Arv? And as I said, he already had another MSc in business management. So MAIS was for him at this point in his career really a way of breadth of knowledge. So leadership, organization change, creativity, innovation, and learning and technology. So Arv, I'll start with you. Could you please speak a little bit more about your journey, right? What I just kind of summarized for you, and correct me if I'm wrong. And what is the decision you had? What was the decision you made to do MAIS, and why an interdisciplinary program of study?
Yeah, well, thanks, Willem. And if I could just get a thumbs up, can people hear me okay? Excellent, thank you so much. Well, let me begin by welcoming people from wherever you are to joining us here on the MAIS panel. With respect to my journey, hitting on what Dr. Axe said, yeah, I'm a military. I've been in the military for about three and a half decades now. So I started my education journey back in the 90s with the Baccalaureate of Science. And then about 11 or 12 years later, I finished my Master's of Science while still learning how to drive and navigate and fight warships. That was what I've done for most of my adult part of my education and job. The armed forces, as Jon will probably also say, values education a lot. So time and time again, we go back to the education paradigm to upgrade our skill set. And that's why I did the Masters of Science. And then after that, I had the opportunity to be at the Newport, Rhode Island Naval War College. And I got a diploma and certificate there. At about 2009, I left the armed forces, the uniform service, and entered the public service. And it was a transitionary period for me. And I wanted to upgrade my skill set. Another great term that Dr. Axe used was this entity of a lifelong learner. I espouse that in the students that I teach, and I try to live that way myself. So after about 3 decades after I finished my baccalaureate, I undertook the MAIS program, and the MAIS program was perfect for me. I did an exhaustive research beforehand, seeing what program would fit and benefit from me. And it was a different place in my life, maybe the autumn or the winter of my working life, but I wanted to do something for me. Rather than for the institution, but still be able to parlay the skill set into my day-to-day jobs. And you hit it on the head that the best description I can give is one that I've shared with a number of people. The MAIS program is like you go to a buffet and you're able to touch and dabble and experience the various education paradigms, whether it's business, healthcare, whatever have you, and leadership, information technology, and that which excites you, that where you want to learn a little bit more from a veneer point of view, you can delve into. There's great flexibility, so it gives you that ability to be agile and to pivot. Working with great people like Wilhelm and the program advisors, because you may not even know what you don't know yet, and you want to go down that path. The other thing that I have to say, Wilhelm, for me, it was the course-based option. The course-based option for those candidates that may not want to have the rigor or be destined for a doctoral program or don't know yet, you have the option of doing course-based, which depending on your life, work, family balance might be better. But again, that's not a decision you have to make right at the beginning of MAIS, which I love that, right? You can say, hey, listen, and they set you up with the requisite courses that Dr. Axe has listed, so that if you choose that research or that thesis program, you can do that. So I think for me, I can't say enough about the MAIS program, some of the pros and cons. The diverse people from the diverse backgrounds in terms of the professors, the tutorial assistants, and the student cadre. It's all about the student cadre. So, whether you fixate yourself in one paradigm, whether that be education, then you're going to get teachers and educators. So whereas MAIS students have this ability to be able to be put into various genetic groups and then benefit by being with healthcare workers. I knew nothing about healthcare. In one course, they were all healthcare workers. And I got a different context, a different point of view for a problem set that I was able to use in my role as an educator of military warfare officers. And now the cons are there too. You said the residency program. The residency program brings a group of people together in a very confined period of time. You build relationships. So sometimes, and I've mentioned this to Dr. Axe and her former heads of department, that sometimes as a MAIS student, you come in that first week or 2 week of that 10-week period, you kind of just saying, hey, it's me. I'm a part of the course too. And there's strength and there's relationships already built because those people have done maybe 3-4 courses together. So that was, a challenge. But with an adult education program, the courses are configured to make sure that you have that interoperability. I think I'll stop there, Wilhelm, and then if any other opportunity comes, I'll speak to that at a later point.
Thank you, Arv. Yeah, and we can speak a little more about that going into different communities as a MAIS student, right? And be comfortable and being flexible to be able to do that. Now, you mentioned a couple of things in here. Healthcare workers. Well, Kate, you're not. I'd like to introduce Kate next from the East Coast. You're not working in healthcare, but you did some. You have a background in psychology, right, and clinical research, right, which is the healthcare science that looks at the social aspect of healthcare if interventions are safe. And you came to us, I recall, really to focus on a future career as a multidisciplinary researcher. So your core your core goal I see is to prepare yourself for either doctoral or PhD. And so with us, you focused on professional communication, right? You had a few courses in there, academic writing, of course, and methodological skills. And you did a mixed methods thesis tracks, right? And I looked up your thesis actually, because it was interesting. And you focused on prenatal care. So within a mid-sized city, how certain groups of people who are in need of that are susceptible to marginalization. And the best part about that, I thought, was that you also suggested practical solutions, right? Which is the applied part, which is part of our learning and teaching model. And Kate, are you able to speak a little bit more about your journey and why you came to MAIS and why in particular interdisciplinary studies?
Yes, thank you so much for that introduction, Willem. And I'll just, same as Arv, I'll confirm everybody can hear me okay? Okay, very good. Yeah, I'd love to speak to that. So, you know, quite a few years back, I had completed my undergrad and quite accidentally found myself working in health research, actually. One of those situations where you think, my gosh, I've got to pay off those student loans. I will take any job anybody gives me. And found myself falling in love with it as far as career paths go. Absolutely fell in love with conducting research and being engaged in that sphere. But quickly recognized if I really wanted to build a career out of it, I was probably going to need a little bit more education. So with that, I went on to do my graduate certificate in clinical research to provide me a little bit more of a background, but I did want to pursue graduate studies. And around that same time, I was finding that my career was actually picking up quite a bit and there was lots of opportunities going on. And, you know, I had looked at some universities, including, of course, Royal Roads. And one of the things that really struck me is that with a lot of other graduate programs, there was very much this expectation that if you were going to pursue it, you had to halt your career. You could not work and educate yourself at the same time, which I struggled with because, as you know, I was having all this momentum built up and I didn't want to lose that. And also there's practical considerations that, you know, I'm quite fond of having a roof over my head and food in my fridge. So I very much wanted to make sure I could continue working full time. So of course, I stumbled upon Royal Roads and looked into their MAIS program, which seemed to be such a wonderful fit because I could build my methodological skill set, but at the same time, you know, have a sense of how different disciplinary networks can work together. And I mean, in terms of my field of work, I've never worked with a single team that isn't at least multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary at all. So it was really important for me to be able to bring an interdisciplinary lens to that research. Anyway, so I was able to take on the MAIS program, which was a wonderful experience that exposed me to so much new knowledge, especially from a research perspective. I know in undergrad and even in my professional work, I'd gotten a lot of exposure to different quantitative methods, but I really wanted to be able to build up my qualitative profile as well. So, I mean, I was able to do that through my degree, and then, of course, was able to execute a thesis, which was, you know, a whirlwind, but I wouldn't change it for the world. And the nice thing about Royal Roads as well is through all this going on, you know, I had a couple of job changes. That's kind of the nature of research work sometimes, is you're in short-term contracts throughout. So I had a couple of job changes, I had a baby, and I was still able to continue working through all of my education during that time. And, you know, it was just a fantastic experience. I've, you know, as you know, I've graduated now and I'm continuing to work in health research and absolutely loving it. So thank you so much for letting me share that with you.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you. That's great. So I'd like to now introduce Jon, the third of our panel members. And unlike Arv, who did a breadth of knowledge, Kate, who focused on research, Jon really came to us to transition to a new career, the MAIS program as the catalyst to do so. And Jon has a tremendous amount of experience. I was baffled. You worked in war zones, Cyprus, Afghanistan, and now you are researching basically understanding conflict drivers, so from the practice to the theory. And you also have experience as a leader in humanitarian efforts, right? High River and Saskatchewan and the fires as well. And when you came to us, you had this set of education on occupational health and safety, project management, so quite applied. And then we drafted a program that was based on continue your strengths of your experience. So disaster emergency management courses, research-based conflict management, but also some organization changes, some coaching. And that's how you did your program, a course-based program. Jon, what brought you to the MAIS program in particular, and why did you decide to take interdisciplinary studies?
Thanks for the introduction as well. Yeah, I do have a diverse background, and I really underestimated it as I was leaving the military itself. I did join the military at 17, and I was kind of plunked out of grade 11. I didn't do any education throughout my career, and I'll echo what Arv said. Education in the military is essential. I come from the non-commissioned officer side of the house. As I was leaving the Army, it was becoming very apparent that you needed education in order to advance, regardless if you were from the non-commissioned or the officer side of the house. I did spend 23 years in the military, and I was wounded in Afghanistan in 2006, which ended my career. I was not one to really seek out the medical help required for the injuries that I had sustained from an improvised explosive device, for instance. I ignored the medical side of it. I just went to the hospital, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm good to go, good to go, good to go. And then one day in 2015, I was informed of immediate release from the CAF. Most people have knowledge they're being released from the Army. I did not. It was surprised. I had about 6 months to make change and go. Being stunned and shocked, I was put into a state of panic because I had zero education. I didn't even have high school as I was leaving. So I requested the military give me 3 years, and they gave me the time and allowed me to upgrade. I took full advantage of the programs within the military. I finished high school, and as Willem said, the 2 certificate programs, health and safety and project management, which highlighted my military experiences for sure. But I still didn't feel complete, and I was underestimating my skills as I was leaving still. So I was pointed to an education fair that they were having on the base here in Edmonton. And I have to admit, most of the universities that were there passed me over. They're like, sorry, you don't have the prerequisites. Sorry, you can't do this program. Sorry, you can't do that. No, 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 no. And then I eventually went to one of the last tables, and it happened to be, I believe her name was Shelley. She was the military advisor for Royal Roads University. And she said, you're going to do the Master of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies. And I looked at her and said, there's no way I have the prerequisites to do that. And she's like, no, I'm telling you, you do, and you are. She understands all the terminology. She asked for a military resume, which we call MPRRs, and she understood everything about it. And I was like, okay, this relationship is great, starting off perfect. I had no interest in doing a master's program, to be completely honest with you. I was looking for a certificate program. I was looking for emergency management, to be honest with you, because I had already done the health and safety project management. I just needed that one more piece. But Shelley had explained to me that, you know, you can do emergency management within the MAIS program. You can do leadership, you can do coaching, you can do many different things. And I said, okay, let's do this. I had a time frame and everything, and I went for it. And Willem built me a program, and I stuck with it throughout its entirety. I have to admit, you know, Shelley had asked me right off the bat. She said, what did you do for the majority of your career? And I said, well, I led. And she said, I was going to stop you right there because, yeah, you are a leader, and it's a skill that's highly sought after outside of the military. And in all honesty, I did do the MAIS program. I am glad that I picked and choose that, and I'll get into more of it later as the questions keep coming. But emergency management, I was in and out of that program, the master's program with the RRU for the majority of my time at Royal Roads University. But the course allowed me to choose from others as well. The diversity was very flexible. So I'll stop there, Willem.
Thank you, Jon, and thank you for putting it out so nicely. Yeah. Now, we talked about goals already, right? And there's many goals that I've heard, right? It's about around flexibility to make it fit, not flexibility with the work you do, but flexibility to make it fit your life, to flexible admission pathways, right? And there's many parts of that can make you achieve your goals. But some specific goals that you had, and what aspects of our program allow you to meet your goals? And I think I'll start with Arv on that one, and then if you want to jump in any view, that would be great. But which aspects of the program allow you in particular to meet your goals? So personal goals, educational goals, academic goals.
Yeah, and I think we've touched on some of them, but for me, it was very much the confluence of where education and leadership and technology kind of coincide. And so the program that I presently lead right now is the next generation of naval warfare officers. And I wanted to make sure that we destroyed the model of the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and said, you know, how are we appealing to Gen Z, Gen Y, you know, and somewhere in there, the millennial. And so I asked to sort of go back. And so then I was able to look at the various courses inside Royal Roads and figure out where I wanted to go. And sometimes, you know, for some people, it's like you're painting a house, right? You get that swatch from Home Depot, that 1 inch by 1 inch, and you go, I wonder if that's the color we want. So you and your wife go ahead, you paint it, go, ooh, after that Sunday night, you look at it, you go, that's not what we had hoped for. And sometimes that's what it is with the course selection, right? It's a fantastic marketing of what the course is about. And sometimes they hit the mark and you go, man, this is more than I had hoped for. And there were other areas where I go, this wasn't exactly what I wanted. And you were able to pivot. And so for me, it was that ability to sort of figure out how is information technology, leadership, and education coming together in the 21st century to make education, leadership, and information technology fun for the next generation of naval warfare officers. So that was my driver. My driver was to make my institution better. And the only way we were going to do that was to see, hey, what's out there for leadership? What's out there for scholarship? What are other institutions? And more importantly, what are other silos of occupations doing? What is the health work industry doing to attract people? What is the teaching industry doing to attract, retain, and educate for the next millennia? And so that was what attracted me to the program.
Yeah, thank you, Art. How about you, Kate? Which goals? What did really allow the program for you to meet your goals?
Well, I say there's two things that really stood out for me. One, from the actual content of I know the courses I took for me, was yes, there was a theoretical component that you really needed in order to be able to learn, but there was also a very ingrained practical and applied component. And I know from working from some other colleagues of mine, they may have the same credentials as me from different universities. They find themselves in the workforce and they know the theoretical aspects of the work they're doing, but they don't fully understand how to apply it in a real world setting. And I found, you know, I almost had an edge in that sense that, you know, I remember with my research methods course, you know, the big main project that we had to do with that was putting together an actual research proposal and going through the prof with it piece by piece and saying, okay, well, this might be feasible, this might not be so let's change that up so what you're trying to produce in theory will actually work in a real world setting. The other piece of it that really stuck out for me is just that it's the culture of Royal Roads, that you're a person before you're a student, which was really a little bit of a change from some of the other experiences I'd had in academia, that, you know, there was a celebration that you were a person outside of what you produced academically, and that there was flexibility. I know I had mentioned I had a couple of different job transitions. You know, at some of my busiest times, I was working 60 hours a week professionally and then doing this MAIS program as well. And the notion that, you know, there is that flexibility, I think was really essential. So yeah, it would be the culture that, you know, you're a person before you're a mark, essentially, it was really, I thought, excellent. And that really helped me achieve everything.
Thank you. Yeah, because MAIS students don't have a set cohort, right? So often we say the program office is kind of your cohort. We help you design your program, and we're there to fall back on when you want to make changes, and that happens. So, Jon, I'd like to ask you, and maybe in relationship to the experiences in the program, so your goals, but also how did you experience the program? So moving between disciplines and communities, for example, that was brought up earlier. Was it difficult, or was it not difficult for you to to be a self-directed student, to go to disaster emergency, to go to the communication and follow all those individual courses? How did you experience that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was hoping you were going to ask me that. I found it very easy to move between disciplines. I did find after a few MAIS prerequisite courses, they're the first 3 courses that you have to do a part of the program. It gave me the skills that I needed to carry on and jump in and out. My writing skills were phenomenal. My research abilities were definitely more polished. And I found more polished in comparison to others within the new community that I joined. So I was able to guide and help them as well. And they were able to lean on me. Some didn't, and that's fair enough, to each their own. They're going to do it their own way, some people. I have to echo what Kate said. The culture is phenomenal. If you're an adult learner and you want to move, do a program that suits you, especially as you transition and, we'll call it a midlife crisis type of thing. This is definitely the university and the program you want to do. What I did enjoy most about moving around was meeting many people from many different diverse organizations and backgrounds. Like Arv had said, healthcare. I have never worked with healthcare. I've never done anything with them, but I learned a lot from them. The program itself, moving in and out, made me feel more confident in my leadership abilities. I know I could lead. It's never was a question, but I always wanted to understand how it would apply to what we military folks call the civilian, the civilian paradox type of thing. I have to admit, I see the kind of the world differently now than I did. For example, like I've done many domestic and international deployments, and I only ever saw one spectrum, and that was the military side of the house. I didn't understand the situation from other viewpoints. The programs, jumping in and out of the different programs that I did throughout my MAIS program allowed me to understand and research the why. So for instance, myself, why are we there? Why were we there? Now I can answer those, and I can also apply the other people's opinions and experiences from a professional perspective, not just my own.
Yeah, you went literally from the practice to the theory, right?
Yeah.
Well, Kate, you went more from theory to practice. So, Kate, how did you experience it? You went to professional communication, for example, for some courses, and how did you experience moving in and out of those systems? You said it was great because that gives you an edge, right? But was it difficult for you also, for example, to organize your time doing that? Changes, family.
William,
I would say that we're. Sorry.
I was going to say, William, she had a baby and she did the program.
Yeah.
Props to Kate.
I would pull up my agenda here and show you my very neurotic highlighted color coding system for scheduling, but maybe we won't intimidate anybody just yet with that. But I mean, in terms of organizing your time, it is very much about blocking aside time that's designated pieces of time. It's also having support from, from your employers, from your family members. And I found another thing that was really helpful for me was actually compartmentalization. So if I knew I was having, 4 hours of dedicated school time, I wouldn't check my work email at that time. And I actually very deliberately made sure that no email was kind of being forwarded back and forth so that, if I was at work, I was working on work things. If I was in designated school time, it was designated school emails only. But even, finding some flexibility within work and school. I remember when I very first started, rather than doing 5 days a week of work, I had asked my my employers if I could do 4 10s and then have a 5th day dedicated for schoolwork. And I mean, I'll be honest, there is definitely times, especially some of those really busy periods, where there was the occasional time where you'd go to work all day, then you'd work all night and then go back to work the next day. And, that was challenging, but it didn't happen all the time. So I promise that's not the case. But yeah, I guess, it's being very hyper vigilant about how you're scheduling your time, having that support system. There's a lot of times my husband came into my office with food and then slowly backed away and then just left me to it. So having that support system is really helpful, and being a little neurotic with your agenda is also very helpful.
Yeah, the support networks are tremendous. Without that, no one could exist and no one could study, I realized. So Jon, what about you? how about I ask you this question? When you were in the program and not having that core academic background, right? With what you mentioned, you were 17 when you started the military. How did you experience some of our resources? Like we have the library, writing center. Did you use any of our resources, either from the university or from our own, from the MAIS program office, like the guide or anything? So could you say a little bit about that?
It's funny you asked that because the very first writing assignment I did, I think I got like a 36% in, and I was like, "There's no way I'm going to finish this course. I'm done." And
I remember that moment, John.
Yeah, so and I think I even sent an email to people, and I was like, "I can't do this. There's no way I'm going to pass this course." Moving on, but I think the instructor knew I was better than what I was doing, and she really pushed me to be a better writer. But long story short, I did reach out to the writing center and the library. Absolutely amazing. Because I was doing the education piece, the first 9 months, I was still in the military working. And there was a lot of guys that were doing other programs from different universities in the US and I think in Ontario-based schools. They were like, "Hey, let's see your writing or your library."
Mm-hmm.
And it was apparently one of the best that's out there. The resources available in that library and all everything that's available to you is probably the best that's out there from what I'm hearing. Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, and did you make any change? You didn't make any changes in your program, did you? But how did you decide on that pathway then? Did we spoke about research options at all, and you chose specifically for the course-based options? How did you decide on that?
I think it was you, Willem. I gave you the fire hose of information and what I wanted out of it, and you really developed the program. And in all honesty, I did not deviate from that program whatsoever. I was a little hesitant to do the residency-based portion of it, but I can't stress enough that if you're going to do the MAIS program, you have to do one residency. It made the program so much better, and why not go to Victoria in April when there's still snow on the ground here in Edmonton? I got out there and everything was green. I was like, I don't want to leave. Yeah, I didn't deviate it from it all. It really goes with what was already said. It just shows that not only you, Willem, the folks at RRU really care about you and your outcome the minute you reach out to them. You knew exactly what I wanted. You built the program for me, and I did not change anything in that entire thing for the 2 years that I was doing my degree program.
Oh, that's good to hear that it really came together as a seamless set of courses. I'm happy to hear that. And Arv, you had a few changes, I recall, and how you started a course, for example, and then you were thinking about some other options after that course. How did you make those decisions? Were they really based on the course you encountered, or were there any changes in your overall goal? And did you consider actually a research at one point or so? And how did you come about creating a pathway through the program?
Yeah, so the program initial design, you're absolutely right. Unlike John, I had version 1, version 1.2, and then version 1.3, helped initially by you, Wilhelm, and then followed up by your colleague Erica, who was also phenomenal. So, for the folks that have any kind of trepidation about the support from the MAIS faculty and the MAIS administrative staff, I can't say enough about, you reach out, and there is assistance. You're not alone in your journey, whether that's the Learning Resource Center, the library folks, the IT folks, when you have to create something on WordPress or a website, they're very, very helpful from a distance. So you don't have to feel that, hey, I'm located in Calgary or Edmonton or in Ottawa, that I don't get those resources. I'm fortunate I'm in Victoria, so, even a couple times I was able to go down there. With respect to why was the thing, and then I go back to that, sometimes a course outcome sounds kind of thing, and then you get into it, and maybe it's not what you had hoped for. And for me, one of the things was I got into one of the courses, and lo and behold, as happens from Royal Roads time to time, new offerings come out. And the last offering that I had in my last course, and I couldn't think of a better way of finishing my MAIS program by doing the last course that I did. And it's something that I'm just, abundantly crazy about, and that's sports and sports fan and fandom and sports and society, what's leading what. And so I think it was you sent out an email saying, hey, MAIS students, I think it was a Thursday afternoon at 2:40, saying there's this course being offered by Dr. Jen Melinda who's a former Olympic athlete, is a part of the Royal Roads faculty, and she's developed this course if you're interested. And I think Friday at noon was the last day that you can kind of withdraw without kind of any academic penalty in the current course that I was in. And I think I reached out to you and Erica and I said, hey, this course was made for me. I want in so badly to this course. And you made it happen. And so sometimes it's just by circumstance. Now, with regards to the theory-based the course-based or the research program, for me, I had done a very exhaustive research program for my previous master's. And so I felt that if at some point I do want to do a doctoral research like Kate is leaning towards, that I'm set up for success in that regard. But at this point, I wasn't able to sort of configure my work, travel, and life schedule to be able to dedicate the requisite time and period to do that deep dive that you do need to do in certain areas of a research paper or a thesis, even more so. But I had that experience base from my previous master's, and I said, you know what? I love this course base. You pick it up, 10 weeks later, you get a grade and you learn something, you meet new people, you get a different perspective. And that's the most important, is you get a different perspective on life, on a subject area, on a theory, on a paradigm. And that's what I was looking for. And that's why I did what I did.
Yeah. And actually, I see that a lot more as in my role as an advisor, that a student comes to us, they have a sort of called major. We don't have official majors, but a component that they want to focus on. There's some foundational courses in there. There's some advanced courses in there. And then if there's suddenly a course that they really appeal, like in your case, sports society, that could be coaching. It could be psychosocial interventions, for example, a course that our School of Humanitarian Studies is also offering. It could be a personal choice. So that's a great option in the MAIS program, that it doesn't have to be in line with what your employer or your academic goal wants. You can choose something for you. And Kate, do you have anything to add to this about the pathway that you chose for you? I believe it was quite clear, but did you at one point deviated or thought about deviating from your thesis-based pathway?
Well, in terms of thesis-based, that was always very clear-cut. I wanted to work in research. A thesis is very much a given in that. I know in terms of my courses, though, I'm sure, Willem, your office was so sick of getting emails from me, because every time a new course would come out, I'd jump right on it again, so excited. And I mean, where I had the opportunity that I had moved through a few different organizations during my coursework, is I got to have that lens brought to me from these different organizations. And I know that I jumped into a few professional communication courses, because one of the things I found in my work is that health researchers are famously bad at communicating. And that's some of the reasons we don't always see what we know in the research implemented right at the healthcare level. So I mean, for me, it was really fantastic to be able to have that flexibility that, oh my gosh, you know what? I think this is actually going to be a better foundation for what I want to learn about, and to be able to shoot off an email and someone would say, and I'm sure probably sighing in the background, hopefully not, but that someone would say, yeah, absolutely. It seems like a great fit. Here's when we can plug it into your schedule. So I know I probably went through like 5 or 6 different course schedules, but I was really happy.
Not too bad though. Okay,
that's not too bad. Okay, that's good to know.
So I'm looking at the time. We have about 11 minutes left. There's a few questions in the chat, and I have 2 more major questions to ask. So maybe we can integrate some of the chat questions in there. One is about how is it not to have a feeling of a cohort, not to be meant to a certain group of people. That's one question. And with that question, I'd like to ask to you all, and whoever would like to jump in here, what kind of advice can you give to new students who are coming to the program?
I'll speak to that a little bit. I know that, even though I didn't have a specific cohort, you still encounter students who have similar interests to you, and you'll find that they kind of bounce through the same courses that you do. And that was my experience, at least. And I found that I was able to actually make, even though I was, many kilometers away from a lot of the students that were at Royal Roads, I didn't feel that disconnect. In fact, I felt almost more connected to some of the students through a digital program that, didn't have a specified cohort than I did to other students in my undergrad, when we were all going through the exact same course load. And you find your people. They tend to bounce around to the same courses that you're interested in. And I know I've still got group chats going on years later with some of the students that that I had taken courses with. So it's really not as isolating as you might think it would be if there's no cohort.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. John, what about you? Any advice for new students coming in?
Yeah, same thing, to echo that question there regarding to not having a class. As a matter of fact, you'll have more than just a class. You actually gain like actual friends. I have to admit, there's 3 or 4 people within the program that I did that I still talk to this day. Some are still doing the MAIS program that I'm helping do editing and whatnot and stuff like that, which is great. Keeps my writing skills up to par. But yeah, you definitely build a relationship with people that is far none more than. It also helps doing the residency-based course as well, because you meet people face to face. And for instance, to myself, I did the residency with emergency management program, and they're just finishing up their program now, doing their research-based paper, and I'm still talking to them about different situations. Most of the people in that course are not really from the emergency management side of it, but I had done years of deployments utilizing emergency management skills that they really leaned on throughout their program. So it was good that way. That's it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, John. Arv, do you have any specific advice for new students now looking back on your time with us and being a graduate? What would you say is really helpful advice that you don't need to spend 2.5 years getting to, that you can share with us?
Yeah, no, I think first, just to echo what Kate and John stated, don't worry about the cohortity. And also, obviously, part of the MAIS is that they have a high affinity for group work. Okay, so on one end, as a student, you're like, a group work, I don't know how this is going to go. But on the other end, it's sort of the dynamic of working together with a group of people, maybe on a platform that you're not familiar with yet, and you learn, whether that's Blue Jeans or whether that's Moodle or whether it's MS Teams, right? So that's a great strength of the program at Royal Roads, is that they encourage this cohort connectedness even inside a 12-week course. And I guess, if I could give a piece of advice to anybody who's considering it, please consider the MAIS program, especially if you're not sure what area you want to delve into. And that's not to say that inside the MAIS program, once you've decided that you can't get past a veneer level of education in a particular domain, because you can, and you can program it that way, but it gives you that flexibility. And the last thing is, just as a life's lesson, just breathe. Just breathe. Kate said it beautifully. There will be times where the sinusoidal curve is on its peak, and there's sometimes where it's at the lower ebb, and you just sort of balance. And if you keep that perspective of being able to breathe and reach out, the school, and this is for all faculties, not just MAIS, they accommodate the learner in his or her place of learning. They get it, that you're working, that you have families, that you have commitments, and their business model is based on having that agility and flexibility. So my final words would be just breathe. It's all good.
Thank you, Arv. I'm realize how fortunate I am to work at the institution. We have a culture of caring, and I'm happy to see that back in after being with us for 2.5 years almost, right? That this is what you can say. I'm happy about that. Thank you. I have actually one more final question, and I'll give it back to you, Christy. Or actually 2, but 1, I'll stick with 1. So now you've graduated in the last 2 years, all of you, right? And one of the concerns, I'm not saying this is a concern anymore so much, but when we started the program 10 years ago, interdisciplinary studies wasn't as well established as a field. Now, wicked problems, we're talking about international migration issues or transmigration issues, or we're talking about disasters, environmental, climate issues. Those major issues are solved by interdisciplinary approaches. So we don't have to fight the wording anymore. But when you present yourself, and then John, for example, yourself, you took the program to jump to a different career, right? To get yourself ready for a different career. But all of you, how did you presented yourself to your employer? Yeah, how did you explain your interdisciplinary credential to your employer or to your potential employer? Whoever thinks this likes to run this question, please.
It's a tricky one to answer, to be honest with you. I constantly kept getting asked when I started doing interviews as I left, you have a degree in what? So I was like, okay, let's put it in simple terms for you. I have 23 years of leadership experience. The MAIS, the interdisciplinary program that I did, allows me to be that guy you can go to. I have now experience in coaching. I have humanitarian experiences. I have emergency management experiences, but not just from practical portion, but now in depth, research and writing about it. My degree is more well-rounded and suits needs that benefit an organization more than just one specific area of study. Makes you more well-rounded. And to answer one of your earlier questions that I think I kind of skated around, to be honest with you, if you are in the military and you are leaving, or in the situation I am where you're getting pushed out, this is a program for you because it allows you to make you a more multi and well-rounded individual.
Thank you, Jon. How about you, Kate?
I have to say my experience was actually quite opposite of Jon's, that I never had to explain it. Going into different workplaces, the perception was very much, oh my gosh, you can bring an interdisciplinary lens to this work. Just by nature of the work I do, it's inherently, you're always working with interdisciplinary teams and incorporating different perspectives from all of those disciplines. So it was very much seen as an asset rather than something I had to explain. And kind of the unexpected piece of it is, yes, now I have the skill sets in order to do what I want from a research perspective, but now I'm actually also being considered in upper leadership roles now for the organization, because yes, I have the research skill set, but I also was able to kind of almost accidentally develop some leadership skills throughout the program. So it's always been an asset rather than anything I've had to explain. Okay,
yeah, I'm happy to hear that. Thank you. I have 3 more minutes. I'm looking at the chat. The final question I have for you all, is there anything that I missed to ask you, or is there anything additionally that you'd like to share about MAIS, your experience, and for people who are considering it? Arv, do you have anything to share? I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I just did. I realized that, but if anybody has anything to suggest that hasn't been said or that needs to be said.
Yeah, the only thing I think I need to add is that, if the last year and a half has taught us as a whole society, as a province, as a country, as a world, is that expect the unexpected, and you don't know where your answers are going to come from. It demands that you be innovative, and it demands that you have this agile mindset. And MAIS does that. It really does. I remember having a problem, and my answer came from one of the core classes that I was in that had a large preponderance of hotel and tour industry folks in that cohort. And it was hinted around culture. And I go, wow, you never know where the answers are going to come from to address a problem set inside the armed forces, inside a cultural domain of a school setting. So I think that's where I'll stop.
Okay. Thank you so much for your insights and for sharing your time with us and explaining what your experiences were. It was great for me to learn too. Christy, I'll give it back to you. Are there any specific questions from the chat that we might want to go into? I believe we have answered a few.
Yeah, thank you so much. I don't see any other questions that you haven't hit on in the chat box, but I've just been listening into this panel discussion and I'm really inspired by all of your journeys. So thank you so much all for sharing. And I'm just going to share my screen again for a few final slides with some information that might be helpful for you. So some key dates, if you are looking to apply to the program, the next intake starts on September 7th, 2021, and the application deadline is June 7th. And if you're looking a little bit further down the line, we have a January intake as well. So it's great to start thinking about your application and everything that goes into that now, if it is something that you're thinking you are going to want to apply to. And if you are, I'm not sure if there's any international folks here today, but if you are applying internationally and are hoping to do that residency piece or something like that, then it's best to get your applications in, say around 6 months in advance, so you can work on the study permit portion of that. And then as well, Rhonda has been, and Alana has been amazing resources today, sharing information in the chat box. So you're welcome to reach out to them if you have any questions, as well as here's our more general email addresses for both domestic and international enrollment advisors. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to follow up with them. And if you are curious about learning more about Royal Roads and what that looks like, the different services we offer and everything, we actually do have an open house coming up in just a few weeks. So I'm going to pop it into the chat box, the link where you can find more information. So that is another place you can go if you want to chat a little bit more with us and learn a bit more about Royal Roads in general. And with that, looking at the time, we're just 1 minute over. So thank you to everybody who has stayed with us up until now. Really appreciated all of your thoughtful comments and questions in the chat box. And thank you again to Kate, to Arv, to Jon for sharing all of your insights, to Willem and Joe for manning that panel and also taking us through the program information, and to our team who helped out behind the scenes. Clearly, it really to put on these webinars. So we're really happy that you could join us today. And any final words from you, Willem or Joe, before we head off?
No, I don't think we have time anymore. So I think I'll conclude with this then.
Perfect.
Yeah, just thanks so much for being here today, and look forward to seeing more of you.
Perfect. Thanks so much, everybody.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, Kate, Tom, Arv. That was great. Thank you.
Thank you.